Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Silent Analyst, where we cut through the noise and take a closer look at the strange, the unexpected, and the things that don't quite fit into the headlines. Today, we're going to dig into a story that seems simple on the surface. A soccer superstar, a presidential visit, a glamorous event full of billionaires and political elites. But the moment you look just a little bit deeper, the whole situation starts feeling off. Not wrong, not illegal, but strangely choreographed. And if you've been paying attention to how the world has been moving lately, you probably felt the same thing. Something bigger is happening here. A few days ago, Cristiano Ronaldo, yes, that Cristiano Ronaldo, walked into the East Room of the White House. Elegant dinner, Saudi delegation, top CEOs. The kind of environment where millions of dollars move with a handshake. Nothing unusual, right? Except it was because right there, in the middle of that room, full of power, politics, and global interests, Ronaldo wasn't just a guest. He was a signal, a symbol. And for some people in the elite, he's more valuable than most diplomats. Why? Because in today's world, influence doesn't come only from military strength or corporate empires. It comes from cultural icons, from the people capable of shaping public opinion without saying a single political word. And Ronaldo is exactly that. The real twist came the next day. Behind closed doors, away from the cameras and noise of the gala, President Donald personally handed Ronaldo a symbolic golden key, a gesture reserved for very few people. And as soon as that photo appeared online, the internet detonated. Headlines resurfaced. Past scandals re-emerged. Old accusations, whether dismissed or disproven, came back like ghosts. Almost overnight, it felt like someone flipped a switch. Time to bring out the skeletons. If you've watched global politics over the last decade, you know exactly how predictable that reaction is. But the question that matters is this. Asterisk, why now? Why the timing? Why Ronaldo? Why this key? Why this meeting? Because nothing in circles like these happens by accident. And there's something else. Something that resurfaced from deep in the archives. Something Ronaldo allegedly said in 2009 during a scandal in Las Vegas. I'm 99% a good guy. I don't know what the other 1% is. Now we don't know if he actually said this, but the phrase is unsettling. It reveals a shadow most people ignore. And it opened a door to a connection few noticed. In Hollywood, in sports, in the music industry, and yes, even in politics, the idea that greatness demands a price is older than all of us. And that brings us to something even stranger. A movie, released in 2025, almost ignored by the mainstream. A film that doesn't talk about ghosts or witches, but about athletes. About the cost of being the greatest of all time. A film called Him, and what it suggests might be closer to reality than fiction. Because if Cristiano Ronaldo is the most recognizable GOAT on earth, then the movie's central message, the idea that GOATs aren't born, they're engineered, becomes a lot more disturbing. So let's do this. In the next part, we're going to dive into the hidden symbolism inside the movie, the idea of manufactured greatness, the strange parallels to real athletes, and why these themes suddenly re-emerged right after Ronaldo's visit to the White House. Prepare yourself, because the deeper we go, the darker this gets. The movie that nobody took seriously until now, alright? Let's get into the strange part. A lot of people saw the Ronaldo White House event as nothing more than an elegant ceremony. But there's a piece of this puzzle almost nobody connected. A 2025 movie called Gwat, or Him, depending on the platform. A small film. Barely promoted. But with a message so specific, so uncomfortable, that it almost feels like a warning. And here's a simple question. Why would a movie about athletes feel more like a documentary about power and control? Let's break it down. The GOAT isn't born, he's built in the movie. The main character, Cam Cade, is a promising football player, raw talent, absurd discipline, the kind of athlete who could easily become the next Ronaldo of the NFL. Then he suffers a severe injury, the kind that would end the career of any normal person. But then, suddenly, one of the greatest athletes of all time appears and says, I can fix you. You can replace me. But there's a price. And that's when the film stops being sports and enters darker territory. Isolated training inside desert mansions. Blood being transferred between athletes. Esoteric symbols on the walls. Rituals disguised as mental preparation. And a secret group of billionaires quietly funding everything in the shadows. In other words, The goats aren't discovered. They're manufactured, literally, and the question the movie throws in our face is simple. What if being the greatest of all time always comes with a hidden cost? I'm going to tell you why this is important now. If this movie had come out 10 years ago, it would have been just another thriller, but it was released at the exact moment when billionaires control global sports, nations use athletes as diplomatic tools, and celebrities are treated like political chess pieces. And when you connect that to Ronaldo's appearance at the White House, and the symbolic key, and the sudden wave of resurfacing criticism, as if someone flipped a switch, everything starts to take on a different tone. Almost as if someone is saying, the greatest athlete on the planet isn't just playing soccer, he's playing on another field. This is where things get really strange. In the movie, there's a specific moment when the mentor, the original GOAT, looks at the protagonist and says, "Greatness demands sacrifice." And suddenly that phrase Ronaldo supposedly said back in 2009, "I'm 99% a good guy. I don't know what the other 1% is," begins to sound like part of the same narrative. Not literally, of course, but as a reflection of the same idea. People who reach the top, in sports or in politics, carry something the public never sees. Something that doesn't show up in interviews. Something you can't post on Instagram. Something you definitely can't put in a Nike commercial. And when you add this to the timing of the Economist cover, the presence of CEOs like Musk and Tim Cook, Saudi Arabia's sports diplomacy, and a restricted event inside the White House, it becomes difficult not to wonder, is a new GOAT being prepared? And we haven't noticed yet? Because this story doesn't end here. In the next part, we will delve into something even more delicate. Kanye West's statements. The sacrifices in the elites. And why does he claim that athletes and artists only reach the top after losing someone very close to them? And yes, this includes Michael Jordan, Dr. Dre, Bill Cosby, music celebrities. Get ready, now we're going to get into the heavier part. Alright, my friends. Up until now, we've been dealing with symbolism, politics, influence, and a movie that feels a little too close to reality. But from this point forward, the story stops being strange and becomes uncomfortable. Because what I'm about to talk about isn't fiction. It isn't theory. It's something that keeps surfacing in interviews, documentaries, leaked testimonies, and the words of people who were inside the highest levels of fame and influence. And oddly enough, it matches the themes of the film Him almost perfectly. Kanye West, the unfiltered warning. In 2023, Kanye West sat down for an interview that, for some reason, almost nobody paid attention to, at least not the part that mattered, and he said something brutal. They sacrifice someone you love, to traumatize you, and to control you. He wasn't talking about metaphors. He wasn't talking about pressure or the emotional cost of fame. He meant it literally. According to him, the price of entering the elite, the true elite, is not money, not talent, not discipline, but loss. A loss so deep that you never recover, a wound that never closes, a trauma that keeps you obedient. And the examples he gave were not small names, not rumors, not tabloids. He cited Michael Jordan, Dr. Dre, Bill Cosby, and even himself, all tied to tragedies involving loved ones. Tragedies that happened at crucial turning points of their careers. And look, I'm not here to tell you Kanye is right or wrong. I'm not here to say these events were planned or supernatural. But what I am saying is this: every time someone reaches the absolute peak of fame, wealth, and power, there is always a story of loss behind them. Always. Michael Jordan, the father's death in 1993. After winning 3 championships and becoming the face of global sports, Michael Jordan's father was murdered in a bizarre roadside incident. To this day, the details are murky. The timing is strange. And the impact was so devastating that Jordan walked away from basketball entirely. To Kanye, this wasn't random. He claims they punished him, or they demanded a price. Again, we're not confirming anything, but the pattern shows up again. And again. And again. Dr. Dre and the son's death in 2008. Just as Dr. Dre was hitting a new peak in his empire, his son was found lifeless at 20 years old. Another tragedy. Another life cut short. Another superstar pushed deeper into the elite circle at the exact moment of unimaginable personal loss. Coincidence? Maybe, but the pattern doesn't end there. Bill Cosby, the son lost on the highway. In 1997, Bill Cosby's son was killed on the side of the road while changing a tire. It shook the entertainment world. It shocked Hollywood. It broke the Cosby family forever. Kanye brings this up as evidence that some rules exist behind the curtain that none of us see. Rules that demand payment. Rules that traumatize, bind, and silence. But the point is, the elite always demands a price. In Hollywood, in music, in politics, and yes, even in sports. Which brings us right back to Cristiano Ronaldo, and to the timing of his visit to the White House. Because now we need to answer the real question. Why did all the old scandals, accusations and controversies against Ronaldo suddenly explode again, exactly 24 hours after he received that symbolic key from the president? Was it political? Was it coordinated? Was it a warning? Or was it something else entirely? Ronaldo's sudden media backlash, the GOAT manufacturing symbolism, and the strange resurfacing of a 2009 allegation, plus the Economist cover predicting a new global football king. The deeper we go, the more disturbing this becomes. Alright, now that we've walked through the symbolism, the movie parallels, and the disturbing pattern among the elites, it's time to address the part of the story that everyone noticed, but few understood. Because 24 hours after Cristiano Ronaldo received that symbolic key from President Donald, something strange happened, almost like clockwork. Old accusations, old scandals, old controversies, all resurfaced, as if someone pressed play on a pre-programmed narrative. And you may have felt the same thing I did. This doesn't feel natural. This feels activated. Let's break down what actually happened. The timing is too perfect. The day of the gala, everything was applause, flashes, and congratulations. But the next day, British tabloids, American networks, European sports outlets, social media influencers, activist accounts, and even rival fanbases all exploded with new posts, new articles, new analyses, all about Ronaldo's past. Not his game, not his legacy, not his achievements, but his most controversial chapter. Articles from years ago suddenly became breaking news. Debunked claims returned with new headlines. Hashtags reappeared like someone injected them into the algorithm. It wasn't organic. It wasn't random. It was coordinated pressure. And whenever something like this happens, you have to ask who benefits, who triggered it, and why now. Let's go back to that moment inside the Oval Office. A president in a polarized nation hands Cristiano Ronaldo a symbolic golden key. Not a trophy, not a medal, a key. Keys represent access, influence, alignment, approval. And historically, U.S. presidents reserve this kind of symbol for people who represent national interests, support diplomatic narratives, or have massive cultural impact. Ronaldo checks all three. But here's the uncomfortable part. Whenever a global icon publicly aligns with a controversial political figure, the media treats it like a threat, not because of morality, not because of values, but because influence is currency. And Ronaldo has a lot of it, a lot more than most world leaders. The Economist cover, the hidden clue weeks before the event, The Economist released a cover featuring a giant football patterned planet, Earth stylized as a soccer ball and a red-clad athlete striking it. Many people dismissed it as typical editorial art. But then, Ronaldo, a global superstar in red, appears in the White House immediately after. Coincidence? Possibly. But if you follow the way The Economist constructs symbolic covers, you know they don't pick visuals randomly. They're predictive. They're suggestive. They hint at geopolitical shifts before they hit the headlines. And here's the question. Was the magazine implying that football, and its biggest global icon, is about to play a key role in world politics? Because if that's true, then the backlash against Ronaldo wasn't punishment. It was preemptive control. A reminder of something very simple. We can build you, and we can break you. Now let's connect the dots. Ronaldo attends a highly symbolic diplomatic event. He receives a ceremonial key with political and cultural weight. Global CEOs and geopolitical players are present. The media eruption begins almost instantly. Old controversies are weaponized in perfect sync. Online searches for his scandals spike 300% in a single day. Meanwhile, a movie suggests goats are engineered, not born. And a major magazine hints at a new global football king. Put all of this in a single timeline, and it starts to look less like coincidence and more like scripted choreography. If you control culture, you control people. And if you control athletes, you control culture. That's the part most people miss. So what's really being built here? Here's the hypothesis no one wants to say out loud. Someone is preparing the stage for the next global GOAT. And Ronaldo is either being elevated or being phased out. Because every time a major shift approaches in politics, sports, or global markets, the old king is destabilized before the new one rises. And with the US hosting the World Cup in 2026, with Saudi Arabia expanding its soft power empire, and with political tensions rising, you have a perfect storm for a new symbol to be chosen, a new face, a new legend, a new narrative. The media backlash might not be about punishing Ronaldo. It may be about clearing the field. Because there's one last layer we need to explore. What did Kanye West actually reveal about engineered greatness? How do secretive groups supposedly select their champions? And why would this matter for the next World Cup? And more important, could Ronaldo's White House visit mark the beginning of a global transition, not in politics but in power symbolism? Let's gather all of this now. Alright, up to now we've talked about patterns, symbolism, narratives, media activation, and the way cultural icons get used as political instruments. But now we need to step into the most sensitive part. Because Kanye West didn't just talk about loss or sacrifice. He talked about a system. An organized method, hidden from the public, used to create control and sometimes replace the goats of every industry. Whether you believe him or not, the details he described line up disturbingly well with the patterns we see in Hollywood record labels, international sports federations, and political power circles. So let's break down what he actually said, and why it matters now. The selection process, according to Kanye in Kanye's own words, they choose who rises, they choose when you fall, and they choose what you lose. Notice the structure. 1. Selection. The talent that fits a long-term agenda gets chosen early. Not because they're the best, but because they're useful. 2. Elevation. Once selected, the person is surrounded by coaches, mentors, agents, PR teams, and executives who shape their image into something larger than life. 3. Trauma. According to Kanye, a personal tragedy is not random. It's the mechanism of control. He says, you're never the same after that. And that's exactly what they want. 4. Replacement. When a goat becomes inconvenient, too political, too outspoken, too independent, a new one is elevated to take his place. It's not about talent. It's about institutional usefulness. Who gets to decide? Kanye calls them the gatekeepers, not literally the Illuminati, not a single group or secret society, but a network of billionaires, media executives, sports commissioners, political advisors, corporate owners, entertainment conglomerates. People who control the industries that control the culture, and if you control culture, you control the world. Remember the phrase? Politics is downstream from culture. That's why athletes matter more today than many heads of state. So what does this have to do with Ronaldo? Let's connect this system to the timeline we already analyzed. Ronaldo rises, not just as an athlete, but as a brand, a symbol, an icon. He becomes bigger than football, a global ambassador of influence. Saudi Arabia uses him to reshape its global image. Sports washing, soft power, diplomacy through celebrities. He is invited to the White House, not for a photo op, but for symbolism. He receives ceremonial key, a message of alignment, political, cultural, and diplomatic, and only then the media machine activates. All at once, all synchronized. This is why Kanye's warning matters. Because what he described, the rise and punishment cycle, is exactly the pattern Ronaldo walked into. And when someone reaches Ronaldo's level of global influence, the elite stop seeing an athlete and start seeing a threat. Or worse, a free agent. Someone who answers to no institution. And that might be the real issue here. Asterisk, asterisk, what if Ronaldo isn't just being attacked, but being replaced? This is the uncomfortable hypothesis. The world is preparing for the next GOAT not organically, but intentionally. Think of Messi's global media arc. Think of Mbappe's potential. Think of Haaland's engineered image. Think of the upcoming World Cup on US soil. Think of the billions flowing into new football markets. Think of Nike, Apple, Adidas, and the entertainment conglomerates shaping culture. Ronaldo, at 40, is still a giant, but the system always moves to the next icon. And the transition always begins the same way. Smear the old, elevate the new, rewrite the hierarchy. The backlash after Ronaldo's White House visit wasn't a punishment. It was phase 1 of replacement. 1. Who benefits from destabilizing Ronaldo now? Political players? Media corporations? Saudi Arabia's rivals? World Cup stakeholders? 2. Who is being positioned as the next global GOAT? And why the timing is so precise? 3. What does the movie GOAT, The Economist cover, and the backlash reveal about the future of global influence? Next, I will reveal the final implications of this entire narrative. The final question: who benefits? This is where everything comes together. We've looked at the symbolism, the media activation, the patterns Kanye exposed, and the timing, always the timing. But now we need to ask the real question: who actually gains from destabilizing Cristiano Ronaldo right now? Because narratives don't activate themselves. Headlines don't resurrect old scandals accidentally. Algorithms don't randomly push old controversies to the top of search trends. Everything has a beneficiary. Let's break down the 3 groups that stand to gain the most. 1. Political interests. Whether you support him or not, President Donald is a polarizing figure. Anyone who aligns with him, even symbolically, becomes a target for political narratives. A celebrity as big as Ronaldo standing beside the president sends a message that the administration has global celebrity appeal, that major foreign figures respect the U.S. leadership, that the White House is welcoming. Iconic cultural power, and for opponents in the political arena, that's dangerous. So the fastest way to counter that image is simple: dig up the dirt. Turn admiration into controversy. Turn a handshake into a scandal. Political media does this all the time. It's not personal, it's strategic. 2. Global sports interests, especially Europe. Let's be honest. European football institutions hate the Saudi expansion. Saudi clubs stealing top players' billion-dollar investments. Mega contracts breaking market logic, the growing influence in FIFA and global sports media, and the plan to dominate the next decade of football. Ronaldo is the face of that expansion. He is the symbol of the Saudi takeover. So every time he gets elevated politically, especially in the United States, it strengthens Saudi soft power. And what do his critics do? They don't attack Saudi Arabia. They attack him, because weakening the symbol weakens the project. 3. Cultural manufacturers, the next GOAT industry. This one is the most uncomfortable. Brands, agencies, media conglomerates, streaming platforms, sports marketers, they all need the next icon. Not tomorrow. Not in 5 years. Now. Because the World Cup is coming to US soil. Because billions in marketing depend on fresh legends. Because Messi is in the final chapter. And Ronaldo is at the tail end of his dominance. So what's the corporate equation? Phase out the old narrative. Build the new one. Push the transition aggressively. Who fills that role? Mbappe? Haaland? Jude Bellingham? A new American face for domestic influence? A Saudi-backed future star? The machine is preparing someone, and when the machine prepares someone, it cleans the field first. Meaning, the old GOAT must be destabilized so the new one can rise without resistance. This isn't conspiracy, it's marketing logic. Look at what happened with Michael Jordan gives Kobe Bryant, Kobe gives LeBron, LeBron gives Giannis, Luka, Tom Brady gives Mahomes. The old star is always questioned before the new one is crowned. Always. The Economist cover a prediction? Now that we understand the beneficiaries, let's go back to the cover. A football-shaped earth. A red-dressed figure. A kick that symbolizes global influence. What if this wasn't just predicting a sports moment? What if it was signaling? We re-entering a new era of global cultural power, and someone will become the symbol of that era. Ronaldo's White House visit might have been a signal, a handshake, a recognition, or even an endorsement of his symbolic reign and the backlash. That might have been the countermove, the pushback, the course correction from those who don't want Ronaldo representing global influence going forward. The true meaning of the GOAT manufacturing theory. This is the final point. What the movie GOAT suggested, what Kanye West warned about, what the media cycle keeps showing, is this: greatness isn't just earned, it's negotiated, it's cultivated, it's controlled. And when necessary, it's replaced. The backlash against Ronaldo wasn't a mistake. It was a message. A reminder of who controls the narrative. A reminder of who decides what legacy really means. A reminder that even the greatest of all time is still vulnerable to whoever holds the megaphone. My friends, when a global icon steps into the center of politics, diplomacy, and cultural influence, he doesn't enter a room, he enters a battlefield. Cristiano Ronaldo walked into the White House as a superstar and walked out as a geopolitical symbol, and symbols always attract enemies. This story isn't about football, it's not about politics. It's not about a scandal from 2009, it's about power. Who has it, who wants it, who shapes it, and who gets punished when they step outside the script. The world is changing. New legends are being engineered, and the old ones are being quietly dismantled. Not because they failed, but because their role in the narrative is coming to an end. Welcome to the new era of global influence. If you've made it this far, my friends, you already know this story is bigger than football, bigger than politics, and bigger than Cristiano Ronaldo himself. The world is shifting, quietly, strategically, and the next chapter of global power may already be written. So here's my question to you. Do you want to keep watching the world through headlines, or do you want to see what's behind them? If the answer is behind, then make sure you subscribe to the Silent Analyst, turn on notifications, and leave a comment telling me whose hidden story you want exposed next, because what the media won't explain, I will. And as always, my friends, stay sharp, stay aware, and never stop connecting the dots.